Doc on the Run. We help injured runners run.
Should I have serial injections for sinus tarsi syndrome? Well, that's a great question, and that's what we're talking about today on the Doc on the Run podcast. I saw a runner today, and I actually did an injection for sinus tarsi syndrome, and she asked me a great question. She said, is this something I'm going to need to do every 3 to 6 months or something? Now, she'd been reading up on this, and she had seen where, for certain conditions, it's normal to go in and do a treatment every few months or a certain number of times a year. And so what we're talking about here is serial injections, meaning, of course, cereal, not cereal, right? So no, there's no breakfast cereal that's been shown to fix sinus tarsi syndrome as far as I know, but if you have any research on that, post it in the comments. Serial injections, what does that mean? We're going to do an injection over and over. Why would you do that for sinus tarsi syndrome? Well, because you have inflammation in the sinus tarsi or the subtalar joint. So what is the sinus tarsi? Well, if you look at the heel bone sitting here, and then the talus bone sitting on top of the heel bone, and then you have a bunch of other bones in here that you really don't care about all that much, so we're not going to draw all of them, but this is basically your foot. Well, that spot right there, that hole that you can sort of see through when you're looking at a foot model that goes straight through the foot, that's the sinus tarsi. When we look at it from a different angle, like up above, we have... I'll go ahead and make comments about how childish my drawings are. I know they're not good, but that's the best I can do. So here's the thing. You have basically your talus. This bone, this is the talus. So the talus is sitting on top of the heel bone. And then, like I said, you got all these other bones that you don't really care about. So all those are in here, and so on, like that. The sinus tarsi is a canal. It's a space between, goes in here, goes underneath there, and comes out here. That's the sinus tarsi. So the sinus tarsi goes underneath the talus and comes out the other side. So you get inflammation in there, and the reason that happens is a couple things. The most common way is you sprain your ankle. You roll your ankle, you twist it, you stretch that tissue. The lining of the joint, called the synovial fluid, or synovial tissue that makes the synovial fluid that lubricates the inside of the joint and keeps the cartilage healthy, well, that actually gets inflamed. It can't swell outward, so it swells inward. And then you pinch it between those two bones when you're pronating and supinating, your foot's moving around. So you run on an angulated surface, you step on a driveway cutout, you jam it all of a sudden, then next thing you know, it swells a little bit and you have sinus tarsi syndrome. It's inflammation in the subtalar joint. So how would an injection fix this? Well, what we're talking about is a cortisone injection, corticosteroids, the best thing to stop inflammation. And it reduces the swelling, that tissue shrinks back and recedes so it doesn't get pinched in there anymore. So would you do this repeatedly? Well, not necessarily. In fact, most of the time, no is the answer, because I want somebody to get back to running. So let's say you have a ton of swelling, it's been aching for 2 years, and then you finally see a doctor, and the doctor says, oh, you have sinus tarsi syndrome, we'll squirt a little steroid in there, you'll be good as new. And it improves a lot, but it doesn't really recede completely. It feels so much better within a couple of weeks that you start running again, but the tissue's still kind of swollen, so you still kind of pinch it and tweak it a little bit, and then it sort of swells up again. So then maybe several months later, it gets worse. Or you've been running, everything's been fine, and a year later, you're running on the beach, your foot's sliding around a lot, and it jams the subtalar joint, and that tissue swells up again, and then you're thinking, okay, is this a thing I just have to do every few months? Not in that scenario. The only reason you would do a serial injection is you have a problem that we don't really think is going to get better per se by doing it on a schedule of like every 3 to 6 months after the injection wears off. We would just do it again to stop the inflammation, unless you have a joint that is basically destroyed. And we're just trying to like buy you some time because for whatever reason, you can't have like a fusion or a definitive surgery that's going to actually stop the pain by removing the joint and fusing the joint instead. In that case, yeah, a doctor might do that. If they said, if you, for example, you had a lot of pain and you wanted to have surgery to fuse the joint, but you didn't want to do it until next year. Well, in theory, you could do serial injections to stop the pain in the interim, but you don't want to do it right before the surgery because it can decrease your chance of actually healing after the surgery. So when we're talking about this scenario, we're doing cortisone to really get the synovial tissue to calm down, to stop bothering you so you can run. We hope that it would only be once, maybe twice, to really shrink that tissue down, stop the inflammation, and allow you to get back to running. Not a thing that you should have to do over and over and over. You don't want to do that because there's risk associated with that too. Hopefully this helps you understand a little bit more about sinus tarsi syndrome and when a corticosteroid injection or a cortisone injection might actually be helpful. If you like the episode, please like it, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next training.
Doc on the Run. We help injured runners run.